Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Mindfulness Made Easy event. We are so excited to have you here. It's really important to us that we offer support in a range of ways. We offer financial support, emotional support, spiritual support, and now we can add holistic support to that too, which we are thrilled about it. Wherever anyone is on their journey, we are there for them. And this is just an exciting leap for us tonight. I don't want to eat too much into our experts' time. Jodie is excellent and she is going to wow you all. She will introduce herself and then get straight into it. I hope you've all found a really quiet space in the chaos of Sunday night. I know it's a busy one for everyone. She's going to take us through some techniques and help us hopefully become more grounded and more connected. Over to you, Jodes.
Thanks so much, Beck. Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to our first session on mindfulness for fertility. So as you heard, my name's Jodie, and I'd really like to start just by acknowledging you all for taking the time out of your busy lives, as Beck said, to be here, and to thank Beck and Justine and the team at AJFN for creating the opportunity for us to hold this space over the next hour. So you don't need to have had any experience meditating or practicing mindfulness. We're going to be starting right at the beginning. And I'll stop along the way to check in with you, but also feel free to put any questions or comments in the Q&A section as we go. And I'll check it after each practice to make sure that we're moving together as we explore. And Josh, if you can also keep an eye on it and let me know if there are any burning questions, that would be great. So you can ask questions anonymously too, and all questions and comments will only be seen by Josh and I. And I'd love to also hear from you, the places where you would like more support, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and even spiritually, so we can work with the areas of mindfulness that are going to be most helpful to you. As we know, the fertility journey can really often feel quite relentless. You know, elation may be followed by loss, gratitude can grow into frustration, hope may shift into fear, and connection may pass into loneliness. We may naturally feel quite overwhelmed as external difficulty or chaos becomes mirrored in our own internal worlds. Establishing a sense of calm and safety within provides us with a haven to return to when life becomes rocky, and a place of stillness that we can source from to bring ourselves back into balance. So for the next hour, you can think of this being a liminal space, an in-between place where we can hit the pause button on what's going on out there and just take some time to tune in to what's happening here in our bodies, in our hearts, in our souls, and the deep sense of wholeness and of peace within ourselves that we truly long for. We all come from different places and have our own unique stories. But what brings us together as humans, and particularly as women on this journey, is that we have all experienced pain and grief, heartache, joy, anguish, and hope, even amongst the sorrow. I haven't lived through the same shaking grounds that you have, but I have had multiple pregnancies and suffered through many layers of grief myself in the loss of those little souls. I'm now blessed to have two beautiful children, but the journey hasn't been without its significant challenges. You know, I was very lucky to grow up with meditation at home in the style of Vipassana, on which our modern style of mindfulness is actually based. And I learned to practice when I was very young and dipped in and out during my teens and my early 20s. And then I let it go when I began my career as a human rights lawyer after university. And I spent many years leading a team of lawyers and mediators at the Australian Human Rights Commission in discrimination and human rights law. Though I loved the work there and was very committed to it, over time I found myself becoming terribly, terribly stressed and overwhelmed, particularly when I was working in the immigration detention centres, and I brought that stress home with me. When we decided that we'd like to start a family, I have no doubt that this stress was a significant factor in the challenges we faced, and I eventually realized that I would have to take leave from work if I was to have any chance of falling pregnant. We finally had two beautiful children, but when they were small, both of them suffered from some pretty serious health concerns. We nearly lost my little boy when he was just 4 years old. My world turned upside down, and I honestly didn't know if we were all going to make it through. And I really felt like I was flailing. My own health went downhill, and I experienced a very dark night of the soul, slipping into a crisis mode that kind of lasted many years and actually began to shape my identity, who and how I was in my family and in the world. And I desperately needed something that was going to help me to find a place of safety within when it felt like the world was falling down around me. During a particularly difficult existential crisis, my aunt, who's also an experienced meditator, suggested that I come back to meditation to help me through. And I did, and the impact was so great on my life, the lives of those around me, that I decided to leave the world of law for good and go back to train to teach mindfulness, which was just starting to gain traction. So for 10 years, I taught in schools to students and teachers and parents, and ran corporate mindfulness programs for companies like Atlassian, Microsoft, Combank, ING, BT, Westpac, among others. But the more I taught and the more I practiced, the more I understood the potential this work has for very deep healing. My studies eventually led me to Peru, where I spent time with the medicine men and women of the high Andes, completing my energy medicine training in Chile. And it really deepened my understanding of mindfulness and how it fits into that bigger picture of healing. I now teach mindfulness with this in mind, and I also offer energy medicine healing sessions and ceremonies for connection, celebration, and grief, and women's circles and retreats, helping to heal those imprints that we carry from our own personal trauma, the trauma we inherit intergenerationally, either consciously or unconsciously, and to turn those wounds into sources of wisdom and compassion, to really come back on our soul's true path. Mindfulness is a key element in this journey towards wholeness. It not only has the potential to help us manage acute stress and overwhelm, but over time, it helps us to know ourselves better, to see and integrate those parts of ourselves that hide deep within our shadow, not only of our darkness and our fear, but also of our light, our strength, and our unique gifts. So, what is mindfulness? And probably the simplest description is present moment awareness. But rather than using our mind to attain this awareness, the same way we do when we use our mind to learn something logically or literally, this awareness is more of a felt sense. It comes from a place beyond the mind, so that ultimately we become aware of the mind as something we have rather than who we are. And this will become clear as we go along. So although it's called mindfulness, we're really referring to the body mind, given that our mind lives in our body just as much as in our heads. When we practice mindfulness, a lot of the time we're bringing our awareness away from our mind and into our body. There's an age-old saying that when you meditate, you can leave your mind at the door together with your shoes. Because as much as our mind can be helpful, it can also be our worst enemy. So in a moment when we do our first practice, we'll be closing our eyes and tuning in to how it feels within our own minds. And usually it's pretty busy in there. So if you imagine that your mind is like a glass jar filled with water, and you pour in a whole lot of different colored sand, and these are the thoughts and feelings and experiences of the mind. As we go through our day, we shake up that jar over and over again. As our mind races from one thing to another, from home to work, from finances to fitness to family, from treatment to treatment, from thought to thought, and even from anger to shame or guilt or joy, trying to focus on 10 things at once, worrying if we've said or done the wrong thing, and constantly anticipating what's coming up next. The water, your mind, becomes very murky. It's difficult to think and see clearly. So mindfulness is a way of just allowing the sand to settle for a moment at the bottom of the jar. The water becomes clear again. We can think and see and feel more clearly. We feel calmer, more connected, more present, more aware, and then we make much better quality decisions in our lives. Essentially, mindfulness is about presence. It's about being fully in the present moment without worrying about what happened in the past or what might happen in the future. You know, we don't suppress or ignore what else is happening in our lives, but for this moment, we engage with what it feels like to just be here right now. And before we jump in with our first practice, I'd like to demystify the process a little bit. So when you start to settle that sand in your mind, the first thing you'll probably notice is that your attention wanders a lot, that it's hard to concentrate, and this is really normal. You may have heard of the term monkey mind, which refers to the restlessness of the mind as it jumps from idea to idea like a monkey swinging from a tree. And it's very normal for our minds to jump around. You know, you can tell your mind to focus here or focus there, do this or do that, but it doesn't always do what you want it to. So when we practice mindfulness, we need to help our minds to focus. And you can think of it a little bit like training a puppy. I don't know if any of you got a COVID puppy. We did, a little black fur ball called Magic, super cute. So what happens when you're training this puppy? So you put the puppy down and you say, stay. And does the puppy stay? Oh, it gets up and it runs away. So you put the puppy down again and you say, stay. And it runs away over and over again. Sometimes it jumps up and down, sometimes it yelps, sometimes it pees in the corner. You know, and our minds don't stay still either. That's just what they do. And the other thing the puppy does is bring back things you didn't ask for, like an old sock or a half-chewed shoe. And this is a little bit like the mind when we first learn mindfulness. You know, you tell it to focus on one thing and it goes off and it thinks about something completely unrelated. So in training our minds to sit and stay with the experience, we need to use the same qualities that we would use when training a puppy. We need to use firm, kind, and patient repetition to keep bringing our mind back when it wanders off. If it wanders off 100 times, bring it back 100 times. And just as with training a puppy, you'd never kick it across the room if it didn't do what you wanted it to. You know, if your mind doesn't do what you want it to, don't beat yourself up about it. One of the most important lessons in mindfulness is this: your mind will wander. That is just what minds do. But in noticing that it's wandered away and what it is you're thinking about, you're actually being mindful. You're aware of what's happening in your mind in the moment that you're experiencing it. And then in choosing to bring it back again, it's like a bicep curl for the brain, literally training the mind and strengthening the brain so you can be clearer and calmer and more present. So let's do our first little mindfulness practice to bring both our minds and our bodies into the present moment and start to let that sand settle. So I invite you now just to sit comfortably with your back either supported or sitting up straight and your feet flat on the floor. Lay your hands comfortably in your lap and in your own way, take a few moments to settle into your body. Take a few slow, deep breaths. As you breathe out, allowing your shoulders to drop and your muscles to soften. Releasing any tension around your eyes, in your forehead, or your jaw. And then gently closing your eyes and becoming aware of that space before your eyes, like a field of darkness. Just resting your attention there for a moment. And then bringing your awareness around from your eyes towards your ears. And becoming aware of any sounds that are coming and going. Just allowing these sounds to arrive at your ears without going out to find them. Simply receiving them. Noticing any sounds from outside your room. And any sounds from inside your room. And then drawing the focus of your attention closer, seeing if you can notice the sound of your own quiet breathing. Now, as you breathe, seeing if you can notice the physical sensation of the breath passing in and out of your nostrils. Becoming aware that when you breathe in, the breath feels quite cold. But once it's moved through your lungs and you breathe out again, it feels slightly warmer. Now, seeing if you can notice where it's easiest for you to feel the sensations of your breathing. As you breathe, can you feel your belly expanding and contracting? Or is that rise and fall happening a bit higher up in your chest? Or is it easier to feel the breath as it's coming in through your nose or past the back of your throat? If you can't feel anything anywhere, try putting a hand on your chest and your belly. And just feel them rising and falling softly as you breathe in and out. Breathing gently and feeling the slight movement of your chest and your belly, rising on the in-breath, sinking on the out-breath. Simply noticing the feeling of each breath and following each breath. Now choosing one of these places to focus on, either the nose or the chest or the belly. Try paying attention to the sensation of your breath at that point, just for the next couple of minutes. If your mind wanders off during this time, just like the puppy would, simply notice that it's wandered away, perhaps what it is that you're thinking about, and then gently, firmly, kindly bringing your attention back to the sensation of the breath in the place that you've chosen and starting again. Feeling the sensation of your breath at the nose or the chest or the belly. If your mind wanders off, gently bringing it back again. Noticing the feeling of the breath coming in and going out. And if you notice your attention wandering or getting caught up in a stream of thought, simply bring your attention back to the sensation of your next breath, back to the feeling of the breath again, seeing if you can stay with the full cycle of each in-breath and out-breath. Now, as we come towards the end of this short practice, allowing your breathing to become a little stronger, perhaps a deeper breath or two. Start to reactivate your body by wiggling your fingers and toes. When you're ready, gently opening your eyes and coming back to your room. So how did you find that? What did you notice, if anything? Feel free to put any comments or questions in the Q&A. I'd love to hear how you're going, what it is that you're noticing. Did you notice your mind wandering off? Did you notice what it was that you were thinking about? Did anyone find it hard just to sit still? Because this is also really normal. It's very unusual for us to sit in silence by ourselves, doing absolutely nothing. It can be really hard to be fully silent and present with ourselves. Thoughts and feelings, body sensations, even pain can arise that we weren't fully aware of. But there are a couple of strategies that we can use when we're beginning to help us to stay with the experience. One of those is to count your breaths as you breathe. You can do this by counting each in and out breath as one. So in and out is one breath. In and out is two breaths. And then when you get to 10, go back to start again at 1. Or for all of those fidgeters who find it very hard to sit still or need to do something with your hands, here's another little practice that you can do to make it easier to focus. And it's called finger breathing. It has the same effect on your mind and your body as the mini mindfulness practice that we just did, but it has the added benefit of involving our sense of touch. It helps to decrease cortisol, a stress hormone, and it also encourages the release of oxytocin, a feel-good hormone. And it uses the sensations in our fingers as an anchor for our minds to focus as well as our breath. So it's also a really good practice from where there's a lot going on around you and it's hard just to focus in on the sensations of your breathing. This is also a really great practice to teach kids. So sitting comfortably again and taking a couple of slow, deep breaths. And then raising one hand with the palm facing towards you. And with the index finger of the other hand, tracing up the outside length of your thumb as you breathe in. Pausing at the top and tracing down as you breathe out. Breathing in to the top of the next finger. Pause and breathing out as you trace down. Making sure that you trace your fingers according to the rate of your breathing. Make sure that you use enough pressure so that it's not just ticklish. Breathing in and out. When you get to your pinky finger, coming down and then coming back up the other way, into the top of the finger. Breathing out as you trace down. Continuing at your own pace with your eyes either open or closed. Now coming towards the end of this practice, just tracing the last couple of fingers. And then allowing your breath to return to its natural rhythm and pace. Feeling the breath coming in and going out. Gently opening your eyes if they were closed, and allowing your hands to fall back into your lap. So again, how was that little practice? What did you notice, if anything? And again, feel free to put any questions or comments in the Q&A. And I'm just gonna check that now. So this is a practice that we teach in schools, but many of my corporate clients also love this one and say that they do it under the table during meetings. So really, it's all about the practice, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day. The more we practice, the more we settle, which in turn creates space for us to notice even more. And I encourage you to try this every day. Take a moment to settle into your body, close your eyes, notice the space before your eyes, the sounds around you, and the sound and the sensation of your breath coming in and going out. You can use the finger breathing or count your breaths, or simply focus on the place where you feel the breath coming in and out most vividly, whatever works best for you. When you wake up in the morning, before you turn on your laptop, between meetings, or before you go to bed at night. Find a time that works for you, or you can set a ding on your phone. They say that almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. So any questions or comments again at this point? And using the Q&A if that's possible, although let me just check on the chat as well. Okay. So this practice can start to create more space for ourselves in our lives, and over time help us to move towards a state of equilibrium. But what happens when we're thrown off balance? When life gets frantic, or we're feeling swamped, or we face the inevitable bumps and obstacles along the way. There are many, many layers in establishing and maintaining equilibrium, and we'll be delving deeper into the emotional processes later on in the series. But to begin with, let's talk about the physical stress response. Now, we all know that having a few stress hormones in our system is actually very normal and healthy. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning. It can help us to perform at our peak and can be a very powerful motivator if we harness it in a healthy way. But what happens when we're faced with the kind of pressure that just doesn't let up? We can start to feel overwhelmed, and if we let it go on for too long, we can find ourselves becoming chronically anxious and in danger of hitting burnout or breakdown. So, in prehistoric times, if we were to meet a saber-toothed tiger in the wild, our bodies would react instantly without us even having to think about it. The sympathetic nervous system is activated and we go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. Our body starts pumping out stress hormones like noradrenaline and cortisol. Our heart rate, respiratory rate, and blood pressure go up, and our blood actually starts to get sticky so it can clot faster if we get hurt. We also get more cholesterol and fats in our bloodstream so that we have energy to run or to fight. And we become more judgmental, more reactive and more defensive. Our thoughts and feelings swirl around in our minds as we look for the best way to keep safe. And these bodily systems have, of course, evolved to keep us safe in times of threat. And got a message to check on our questions. Yes, so there is a question and I will come back to that definitely. Thank you. So these bodily systems have, of course, evolved to keep us safe in times of threat. These days, the proverbial saber-toothed tiger may not be standing in front of us growling, but it is actually still there in the form of the daily stress that we experience, creating the same physical stress response in our bodies. So there are the big global tigers like COVID and wars, inflation and climate crisis. And then there are tigers that feel like they're coming after us personally, like the difficult colleague or family member we just had a run-in with. A deadline or important work presentation, our new business taking a hit, an unexpected health crisis, the breakdown of a relationship, moving house, or even a new job. And then there's the onslaught of numerous smaller tigers all at once that just keep on coming. constant emails, never-ending bills, relentless back-to-back meetings and Zooms, ceaseless family responsibilities, social media, perhaps ongoing fertility treatments, and then your partner or your colleague makes an off-the-cuff comment and all hell breaks loose. We become a tiger ourselves, and it happens to all of us. The problem is that unlike our ancestors, we don't physically fight these tigers or desperately run for our lives, both of which help to burn off those stress hormones in our bodies. And that's why exercise or anything that works up the sweat is really good for this, to burn off those stress hormones. We also don't give ourselves enough recovery time to build our resilience. We are built to deal with stress, short-term stress. But then we need to give our minds and bodies an opportunity to recover from that stress, to return to a state of equilibrium so that we can amass the physical and mental resources we need to get up and keep going. And this is true resilience. Recovery is the key. Mindfulness provides us with that much needed recovery. It has an opposite effect on the body to the stress response. When we breathe deeply and consciously, the vagus nerve, which runs from the brain down through the diaphragm, tells the body to turn down the sympathetic nervous system, our stress mode, and turn up the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest mode. It's like flicking the switch from stress to calm. We feel clearer and calmer. We experience greater healing, better memory and attention, more focus and concentration. We communicate more effectively, we sleep better, and we make much better quality decisions in our lives. And this is really one of the most important things to understand, that in the heat of the moment, we often don't think clearly or make the best decisions for ourselves. So Dan Siegel, the famous psychologist, explains it this way. If you imagine that my fist is your brain, my thumb is the brain's amygdala, one of the oldest parts of the brain. And it reacts to stress and sets off that fight, flight, or freeze mode. My fingers, which are folded over the amygdala, are the brain's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that controls awareness and reasoning and decision-making. It helps us to think clearly and logically and make good quality decisions in our lives. Now, when we get really stressed or overwhelmed or frustrated or angry or, everything just feels like it's too much, our amygdala reacts and we go into fight or flight mode. Now, heart races, we feel sweaty, we become reactive, and our prefrontal cortex disengages from the rest of your brain. It's like you've literally flipped your lid. And this is great if we're facing a real threat to our lives, because we can just react without thinking to protect ourselves. But if we're in critical negotiations with a client, or racing to a deadline, or standing up to give a presentation, arguing with our partner, or receiving information that's difficult to hear, or discussing something important, or even in the middle of a treatment of some kind, it doesn't always help to react without thinking. We can lash out at someone or do or say something that we're going to regret later on. Or we might just freeze, and you can't think of what to say or do. And later on, you think, I should have said this, or I could have done that. Or we might just drop into a difficult place, physically and emotionally. And this is what Dan Siegel calls amygdala hijack. The amygdala hijacks the rest of your brain and you go into fight or flight mode without really needing to. So what we can do is breathe deeply into the belly to engage the end of the vagus nerve. And this not only switches the body from stress to calm, but as we breathe, we also re-engage the prefrontal cortex so we can think clearly and calmly and make wiser decisions about what we're going to do or say next. And the more often we do this, the prefrontal cortex grows thicker and the amygdala gets smaller, so we can remain calm in the face of storms and, be with ourselves and with other people, even when we're under pressure. And everyone can notice when they're in danger of going into amygdala hijack. For me, I notice a feeling of butterflies, not so much in my belly, but in my chest. And I start to feel kind of uncomfortable in my body. As that sensation gets stronger, my breathing gets faster, heat rises up through my throat, I feel pressure in my temples, and then I explode. So let's do a practice now that can help us when we feel that energy start to rise in our bodies, or we start to feel overwhelmed. And this practice is called calm breathing, or anchoring in calm breathing, where we bring our attention down into the lower part of our body and breathe more slowly and consciously from our belly. When we shift the pattern of our breathing, we also shift our states of consciousness. So this is a great practice to use when you're having a difficult moment, when you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or nervous or angry. So again, just sitting comfortably with your back either supported or sitting up straight and your feet flat on the floor. Taking a couple of deep, slow breaths. As you breathe out, allowing your shoulders to drop and your muscles to soften, releasing any tension around your eyes, and your forehead, or your jaw. And then gently closing your eyes and resting your attention there on that space in front of your eyes, that field of darkness. Now bringing your attention down into your feet, tuning in to the sensation of your feet as they touch the floor. Just noticing what they feel like. Which parts of the soles of your feet are in contact with the floor and which are not. Becoming aware of any tightness from your socks or shoes, or a feeling of warmth or coolness, or pins and needles or numbness. Just noticing as best you can whatever sensations are taking place within your feet. Feeling now any sensations in your heel, your toe, the upper part of your feet. And then tuning into the muscles and bones of your feet, as though you're feeling them from the inside. And then expanding your awareness to include any sensations in the lower half of your legs, beginning with your ankles, and then moving up to your shins and your shin bones, and around to your calf muscles. Again, feeling them from the inside, noticing any tightness or softness. And then expanding your awareness up into the area around your knees, the fronts of your knees, the backs of your knees, the knee bones, feeling any grumbling or groaning here. And then extending your awareness up into the upper part of your legs, into your thighs and your hips, and across the small of your back. Feeling any tightness or tension here and consciously breathing into it. Breathing deeply into these places and allowing the out breath to gently carry any tension away. And now letting your awareness expand to include all the sensations of sitting. Tuning in to what it feels like to be in contact with the chair and the weight of your body as it sits, letting that ground and anchor you. And then opening your awareness to all the sensations in the lower half of your body. It's almost as if you're listening to the lower half of your body, receiving all its textures as they change moment by moment. Now including the sensations of breathing in your awareness. letting yourself be refreshed and nourished by each in-breath, and allowing yourself really to relax as you breathe out. Now, as you breathe, placing one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. Feeling how the hand on your chest moves slightly as you breathe in and out. The air moves in and out of your lungs. And on your next in-breath, see if you can draw your breath right down through your lungs and into the hand on your belly. Breathing down deep into the hand and your belly to engage the end of that vagus nerve. Now, as you breathe in deeply into your belly, on your next breath in, silently counting up to 5 as you breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pausing at the top of the breath and breathing out for the count of 7 or 8, really elongating that out breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathing in for the count of 5. Out for the count of 7. In for 5. Elongating that breath all the way out to 7. And if 5 and 7 don't work for you, you can breathe in for 6 and out for 8, or in for 3 and out for 5, as long as your out breath is longer than your in breath. Doing this now for around 10 more breaths, breathing in for 5, all the way down into your belly, and out for 7. Feeling the sensation of your feet against the floor and the weight of your body as it sits, letting this ground and anchor you at the same time. In for 5, out for 7. And 3 more like this. Breathing down into your belly and extending your out breath. Feeling the sensation of your feet against the floor and the weight of your body as it sits. And 1 more. And all the way out. Now allowing your breathing to return to its natural rhythm and pace, however fast or slow. Seeing if you can still stay with the sensation of each in-breath and out-breath. And then when you're ready, gently opening your eyes and coming back to the room. So how did that practice feel? What did you notice? And let me know how that went again in the Q&A or in the chat. So, this is a practice that you can do at any time, your eyes open or closed. And with practice, we can get used to doing it really quickly as a way of grounding and anchoring ourselves in the middle of any situation, even really difficult ones. Just by feeling your feet against the floor, the weight of your body as it sits, or if you're standing, the weight of your body on your feet, and taking 10 deep breaths, really extending that out breath. slowing our heart rate, steadying our breathing, and calming our thinking. No one even needs to know that you're doing it. I do this practice at least 10 times a day as things inevitably happen. We all feel anxious or worried or panicky at times, and we can't always control the stressful things that get thrown our way. Stuff happens, right? We can so easily make situations much more difficult for ourselves by being reactive to them. If we let our anger or our worry or our fear or anxiety take over, we can make things so much worse. We all know this. This practice creates a bit of internal space so that we can calm down and choose how we want to respond to the situation rather than just reacting automatically in the heat of the moment. And the more often we do this, the stronger these neural pathways become and the easier it is to use these practices in the moments that you really need it. So anchor, take 10 breaths. When you're standing making your coffee, if you get up for a bathroom break between meetings, and especially when you're feeling overwhelmed. They say that, again, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf them. So that brings us towards the end of our the introductory practices today. So again, just let me know if you have any questions or comments in the Q&A or in the chat. Let's have a look. And so someone asked in the Q&A, it's very different, Vedic meditation with a mantra, as this is breath focused. Yes, absolutely. So Vedic meditation encourages us to focus on a mantra, usually some sounds or just a word that we repeat over and over again as we breathe. Mindfulness is quite different to that. So there are all sorts of different types of meditation. There are styles of meditation that take us further out, like journeying or transcendental meditation. But mindfulness is very much about coming back to the present moment. So we're focusing on the sensation of the breath as it moves in and out of our body. We're focusing on the sensations in our bodies as they arise and staying with them, turning towards them, even on the emotions that are arising in our body, like breathing with them, breathing through them. They say that what you can breathe with, you can be with. So yes, it's a slightly different style of meditation. Let's have a look. Okay. Any more questions? And let me know how that went, how those practices felt. I realized too that they're quite introductory practices, but we've been asked to start at the very beginning. So please also let me know if you'd like these practices to be made available to you so you can do them more easily at home or on your own. And if you're interested in learning more or going deeper, in the next session, we're going to look at becoming more aware of our thoughts, and particularly as we have them, worrying or self-critical thoughts that send us off into rumination and speculation. We'll also talk about how often we operate on autopilot, becoming numb to our surroundings and internal experiences, and how to wake up, tuning in to our senses and savoring positive experiences in the moment. In session 3, we can go a little deeper, look at how becoming more aware of our emotions can help us to respond more wisely to difficulty. And that difficulty sometimes arises from, externally, but it can also arise from within. Instead of just reacting unconsciously from our habitual patterns and ways of being. And we'll also explore what happens when life throws us that inevitable curveball or two. And then finally, in session 4, we look at vulnerability, self-compassion, and empathy, as well as happiness and gratitude, and how mindfulness can help us to create a sense of fulfillment that is able to withstand the torrents of changing circumstances and emotions. And then beyond that, if you'd like to go deeper, there's another series that we can offer too. So ultimately, mindfulness can help us to relate differently to our thoughts and our emotions and become more conscious of our internal landscape in a way that we might never have thought possible. And this can help us to face all kinds of different challenges in our lives because we've nurtured those internal resources to meet them. And it can also help us to develop compassion, greater empathy, deeper gratitude, and show us, probably more importantly, how to be a safe person in an unsafe world. It can help us to approach difficult conversations, lean into uncertainty, and really to know ourselves better. It's a sacred journey with many layers and one that I'm continually challenged by, but I do love dearly. But for now, let's come back to the present and just start slowly and comfortably. So I hope that you got something from this session that you can start to utilize in your everyday awareness, in your everyday practice, in the way that you work, in the way that you play, the way that you relate to those around you, and particularly your relationship with yourself. And ultimately, mindfulness can bring such freedom in the realization that you're not a slave to your mind or your emotions or conditioned reactions. You know, it allows you to be with life however it is, the difficult, the overwhelming, the beautiful, and over time, it creates more space for us to choose how we want to be. You know, and this freedom can create within us a much deeper and more satisfying sense of joy and fulfillment. And this is really what I wish for you all as you go on your individual journeys. And remember too, that mindfulness is a little bit like peeling an onion, you know, layer by infinite layer. There's no place to get to. It's about how we are along the way. And for me too, you know, I'm constantly learning and there's always more to work on. So I see we've got 5 minutes left, and thank you so much for being part of the session. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Beck. And I hope to have you along to our next webinar in the series soon. If you have any other questions, please feel free to put them into the chat or into the Q&A. Look after yourselves and your loved ones, and may you be well, may you be healthy, may you be peaceful and at ease. Thank you.
Amen to all that. Jodie, thank you, thank you. I am in absolute awe of you as somebody that really struggles personally to just be still. I honestly appreciate so much what you had to give to us tonight, and I appreciate your time and for being with us. And I said it before to everybody, but this is a new thing for us. This is a pilot. So thank you to everybody that joined us tonight. We can only just guess what everybody wants as their support. And when we believe that it's not for us to say what support should be available, we'd love to hear it from you. We'd love feedback. So I will be contacting some of you this week, and yeah, just honest, open feedback is what I'd love to hear. I'd love to know if you'd like more of this, if you'd like other things. I'm all ears for any kind of support, any way that we can help you all. We are totally here for it. So Jodie, thank you, thank you. And also to Josh, just dealing with the back end of things takes a lot of pressure off me and my team. So thank you to you as well. And I look forward to see you all again, whether it's with mindfulness, with yoga, with Pilates, with whatever you imagine, bring it to us. Jodie, is there any questions that you need to answer before we sign off?
Yeah, so I'm just having a look now. Someone saying thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being part of this. And yeah, just to echo Beck, you know, let us know. Let Beck know if there's anything else that you'd like in terms of your support, and if there's anything that I can offer, then I'm very, very happy to do it. So thank you. And no, there's no more questions that I can see.
Amazing. Well, good night, everyone. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Beck.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.